Hi, everybody. Chapter 7 and 8, Lecture 7. Thank you for coming all this way in these interesting times of COVID-19. So, I gotta be preparing a midterm over the weekend for next week. So, I'm gonna be on the lookout for that. And let's proceed. Chapter 7. Chapter 7 begins to go into detail about how Mexico would gradually lose its northern territories. Texas, Nuevo Mexico, and Nuevo Mexico includes Arizona, includes parts of Utah, Colorado, and California, which is the prime jewel. And what I think some of the main points I want you to pay attention to is how when you are in control and have a degree of power, you want to protect that. And when you have climbed within the echelons of your society, we call these folks like the elite. They're the ones that make decisions, whether political, economic, or societal, or a combination of three. These folks usually are opportunistic, and it makes sense why they would do that. After all, they're protecting their influence and power and wealth most of the time. And so Vigil in chapter 7 and 8 brings up this issue of the elite type people within Mexican society in the Northern Territories cooperating actively or passively with the Anglo-American invasions of those territories. There's a pattern, and this pattern is historical, so it's not like should be of surprise to us. I was just thinking about the Vichy French government, which is the puppet government the German Nazis, put in place to control France when they invaded and occupied France. So among the population, there's always going to be a group of people cooperating with the invaders. And so this pattern is often seen across history and across the world. But here in the Americas, we're focusing on the Chicano Latino experience because oftentimes we have been indoctrinated that the people that we support who are in power tend to, we make the assumption that they have the best interests at heart for the population, when in reality that doesn't come up very often. Oftentimes they're looking out for their own interests, and of course on occasion they'll throw a bone or two at us. I think chapter 8 is of importance because he's going to begin giving you lots of examples of how when a group of people are invaded, and and keep in mind, as I stated in my written lecture notes, so these people have already had to participate in what's called the casta system, and they're accustomed to this pattern where they're trying to climb up this casta system. First by the Spanish, who are thrown out at the early part of the 1800s, and the criollos, who are participating in it still. They're not challenging it. They might be adopting ideas like modern republicanism and democracy, but for the most part, the social stratification continues, and the way the wealth is managed across the region and nation tends to allow for the people who hold the power to be able to control. And of course, this causes a lot of instability in Mexico because you have this casta mentality where you have caudillos, hacendados, people with power and control, competing who's the best, and often defaulting to having some sort of direct connection to Europe. And those who look a little darker, who might have some power, often challenging and resenting those who show prejudicial attitudes towards them. Anyways, fast forward, Texas, California, Nuevo Mexico. Texas, the Mexican government accommodates invading illegal aliens called Anglo-Americans with slaves coming in, accommodate them by giving them land, some land, to be able to develop the area economically, and turns a blind eye to slavery. And of course, on paper, they're not slaves; they're wage earners or laborers. Become Catholic and accept Mexican citizenship, but these people don't have a loyalty towards Mexico. And as a matter of fact, they bring in their prejudice that they hold, the racism, and go ahead and expand it onto the rest of the Mexican population of Texas. They plot it out and they overthrow the Mexican government out of the control of Texas, and it becoming a brief republic. Of course, they know that they don't have the numbers or the support locally to be able to hold on to Texas, so they ask the United States government to intervene and make them a state, and hence how Texas becomes California. Hacendados, missions, the power holders begin to rub elbows with the Anglo-American business people who love California, of course, and everybody still loves California, despite the fact that it's crowded and dirty now. Anyways, so the Anglos are marrying in there, dealing directly with the elite of the Mexicans, the criollos, the ones that look more European primarily. But then also they're serving a double role of informing the U.S. and people interested in taking over under the guise of manifest destiny. Let's not forget that the justification, we have to enter into an ideological justification as to why we are the way we are and why we do the things we do. And this happens at an individual level, but it also happens at the national level. We are the beacon of freedom. We are the spreaders of democracy. But the evidence begins to accumulate to the contrary. All right, California. California is far away from central Mexico, the central government, so they developed this particular autonomous, individualistic outlook, which is similar to the United States cultural attitudes about individualism, tied to the Protestantism, Protestants, and their sense of individualism and hard work, and that God rewards those, which we still see that hanging out to this day with the new prosperity evangelism is tied to that in the 20th and 21st century. Okay, California basically is lost to the United States during the Mexican-American War. Nuevo Mexico, the elites are highly cooperating with the Anglo invaders. They don't even hide it. And the pattern is ultimately that these people who cooperate with people who are invading your territories and exploiting your people that you're culturally related to, but you don't like because they're lower in the caste system, they often also end up being betrayed. Just like they betray their own people, they also, in cooperating with these people, they often get betrayed and abandoned. And it would happen. And so this would set up a population that would be suspended with the only thing to be able to sell is their labor. Hence, we begin to see the beginnings of the migrant seasonal farm workers, mine workers, and just a source of cheap labor. Of course, those people gradually would be integrated into the U.S. Culture, and then the United States would still need that cheap labor, but this time they would begin to rely more on keeping their border porous until the 1960s. Before then, it was pretty much, you can pretty much walk in across the border without too much trouble. Okay, so chapter 8, the other things is the cholos, the pachucas, these manifestations of a marginalized, suspended population, occupied population, trying to deal with survival mode and trying to restructure their identity. Of course, some groups would become fully assimilated, or would thrive or want to thrive by becoming fully assimilated, either intermarrying with the invader or letting go of their culture, letting go of the language as much as they could. Skin color helped, of course, in the process. If you were pretty brown, and you were trying to do that, you could get ahead a little bit, but not as much, because in the United States, there's a special focus, at least during that period of time, on color and race, a different kind of casta system. Now, those who refuse to assimilate and often rejected uh, being socialized into to this new order imposed by the United States culture, they, of course, were isolated, were relegated, and to survive, they took it upon themselves to begin to prey on their own people, and of course, turn to crime to be able to do that. Hence, the birth of gangs. Pachucos is the first attempt at blending the United States culture with through the language, through the clothing styles, and at the same time keeping aspects of Mexican culture in their foods, in the treatment of each other, and their familiar relationships. Now, to people that no longer fit in Mexico and no longer fit in the United States, so this is the beginning of restructuring a new identity. It would peak with what we consider the structuring of the Chicano the identity, a people who honor their past, honor their roots, and also understand very much that they're not foreigners in their own land. All right, so homework assignment. One of course, you're more than happy to pay for that one is $3.99. American Me. Read chapter 8 carefully. Look at the themes that I kind of touch on and points I touch on in the outline, and begin to view that movie through that lens, not through your entertainment lens. I mean, you can do it the first time for entertainment's sake, and then read the chapter and then look at it and scrutinize it through an academic lens, through the Chicano lens. All right. The other movie is Mi Familia. You can watch either both and comment on both in your essay, or one or the other. All right. Till next time.